Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa II, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And we are live from Las Vegas, obviously in Omari's hotel room, sitting right next to each other on this little couch. We literally just got back from the gym. We didn't even get to watch Wemby, Omari. You were working in the gym. I was talking to people. I don't think I saw a second of Wemby play that game because it was post-media, working, doing all that stuff. But we're here now and we're recording the Pistons Pulse.
I saw a little bit of Wemby after the Pistons, obviously. I saw him come dunk and make a fadeaway midi. But we've been working. We've been working all day, all weekend. Of course, it's been exciting times for the Pistons, being able to watch Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser, and of course the returning guys from last season, as they are currently 1-1. We're recording Sunday evening.
You don't know what day it is.
I have to think about it for a minute. Vegas time is different, right? Like I got in Friday. I feel like I've been here like 5-6 days already, and I'm not leaving until Wednesday, so it's gonna feel like 2 or 3 weeks by the time I actually get out of here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Vegas experience at the end of the episode. We'll talk about our meals we've had together and stuff we got to do at the gym. Some crazy fan interaction we've had has been super, super cool. But let's talk about the games first. So, Omari, I want to get your thoughts. Let's just talk about them together. And, guys, I'm going to be completely transparent. I kind of got into some stuff today. I didn't catch all of today's game because I was just meeting with some people and doing some networking and stuff like that. But I did see all of game one. And so let's just start. Let's go player by player. I think that'd be the easiest thing to do. Let's start with Jaden Ivey because he had a little bit of a rough game one, but felt like he responded tonight in game 2. So what are your thoughts on Jaden Ivey so far through 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden honestly might have just been rusty on Saturday. First real in quotes, right, basketball since the end of last season. And I think he shot 4 for 17 or something Saturday. And then today, he comes out, I believe, 22 points, 10 assists. The Jaden Ivey that, we saw, especially towards the end of last season, where he just had great command of the game. And you never want to overreact either way in Summer League. I mean, obviously, we knew the Jaden Ivey we saw Saturday isn't the Jaden Ivey that we saw last season. Outside of maybe a couple bad games, but his baseline, of course, is much higher. But I just thought today it was just a complete 180 from what we saw in game 1, where he's moving the ball. I mean, we saw him pulling up from mid-range, 2 of 6 from 3, which is around the season average from last season. A couple transition opportunities. So just overall really good. And the main thing with Jaden is just when you're a second-year guy, you want to see, if not progress, at least just being one of the best players on the floor. And he was absolutely that today. So no, he didn't have anything to prove per se in Summer League, but to see him come out and really show what he showed last season, I thought was really good for him.
I think it was big for him to have a good game today, though, Omari. After that first game and, the 5 of 19, today he's 9 of 15, Omari, and he dishes out 10 assists today. And I think we saw a transition even in game 1 from the first half to the second half. We talked about that last night is, first half it came out. It looked like I thought he was pressing a little bit. And I think it's one of those things where you come into a game, you feel like you're the best player on the floor, and you just want to show that. You just want everybody to know from the start. And usually that's about scoring the basketball, right? Like you're just going to score the basketball and show everybody how good you are. And for Jaden, it just didn't start out super well, and I thought it snowballed. And then in the second half, I don't know how you thought. I think Saturday night he calmed down in the second half, dished stuff out a little bit more. And I think Coach Jarrett Jack gave us some insight in the postgame interview that maybe Jaden had missed a few days of practices leading up to this, right? I think he mentioned that. So he was struggling to get into things a little bit, but it was good to see him play well today.
Yeah, he was definitely pressing on Saturday. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities where he probably could have given the ball up and looked for a better opportunity. And he took a step back 3 or just tried to force something that wasn't there. And, of course, he had 4 turnovers, I think, in the first 6 minutes of the game, which is never how you want to start things off. But again, I mean, we knew the Jaden that we saw on Saturday isn't who Jaden is. We know what he can do. We know what type of player he is. And today, I mean, it is just a complete opposite of where he was on Saturday, where I think he shot 9 for 15. Didn't have as many turnovers. He had 6 turnovers on Saturday. Pistons still had turnover issues as a team, but just a much smoother performance for him, and maybe can take some of the heat off from folks who thought he regressed from last season off of that performance on Saturday.
I will say, and this isn't an overreaction. This is how I feel about Jaden Ivey, Omari. I did think that I think it just shows he's at least not ready to be a point guard right now. And I'm not saying you can't play him as a point guard at all. I think we're going to talk a little bit about what him, Cade, Ausar mean for the ball handling situation in Detroit when we talk about Ausar. Excuse me, guys. But I did think it showed that having Cade is important for Jaden, because even in a summer league game, him being the lead guy and the only real ball handler wasn't exactly great. I also think we haven't seen Sasser do a whole lot of that. No. So that, again, I think we knew this going into it. But yeah, I mean, Jaden responded today. I would assume we don't see him again. I think personally I've seen enough for him. I like to see how guys bounce back. Wemby's doing it right now, right? Like, he did not have a good game on Friday, and now apparently he's blowing up on Saturday, just crushing it. I love seeing it. And the other thing, Omari, is this was a back-to-back, which doesn't usually happen in summer league. So that was great to see from not just him, but, we'll talk about Ausar in just a second. Ausar playing a back-to-back. I don't know if Ausar's played a back-to-back since AAU day.
Exactly.
I don't know what they did in the OTE. I may be, off here, but I think it was big to see him play so well in back-to-back days.
Yeah, I would say so. I know the it seemed like guys were, you look at the summer league schedule and it's like a back-to-back in summer league, really. But you have like a week of practice leading up to it, and this game against Houston today, even though they lost, obviously I think just have that continuity from the day before. Especially guys like Jaden and Duren who have been through it. You want to see them set the tone, and we could probably talk about JD next, but I think Ivy, you just look at the performance and it's like, okay, I was clearly pressing. Even if you want to be like that dominant lead scorer and kind of set the tone for everybody, you can do it in a way that doesn't, I think, monopolize the offense. And I think that's a bit of what we saw on Saturday, which was still not something that we saw him do a lot last season. So there's a lot of debate on if he's a primary guy, secondary. He can be the primary guy. It's just, he probably don't want him to just be the primary guy, if that makes sense. Like, you have Cade and now Ausar, who has moved the ball extremely well. That's going to give him the help he needs and allow him to attack a bit more, which I think next season you could probably put him in that role where he is an attack mode and not necessarily worrying about playmaking as much.
Funny you hear from Doug McMahon. Cade has been and always will be the straw that stirs the drink for Piston success, to borrow Reggie Jackson's line, the Yankee one, not the ex-Piston Reggie Jackson. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's, it's hard to remember Cade, or it's easy to forget about Cade, however you want to say it, because we haven't seen him play in so long. Now, we saw Cade there today. We saw Isaiah Stewart. It's cool to see all those guys there. Killian Hayes was there as well. But, yeah, let's talk about Jalen Duren, the other sophomore. And I think there's some discrepancy here between the fan base on how people feel about what we've seen from Jalen Duren, not necessarily in his production, but kind of how he's going about getting that production right now. Now, we did see him in some ball screen and roll stuff today, caught a lob, but he's doing, I don't want to say ISOs, Omari, but we see him put it on the deck a little bit. He made a 3 the other day. I think he made 3 jump shots in yesterday's game. Again, I didn't catch everything today, so I don't know how many jumpers he took and made today, but I'm okay with this in terms of it's summer league. Mm-hmm. It's the summer. It doesn't drive me crazy that he's trying some of those things. Where are you at on that? Do you think that's stuff we're going to see continue into the season?
Yeah, I would be shocked if we see Jalen Duren taking dribble pull-ups from mid-range during the regular season. But I do think eventually he could become a guy who is able to hit spot-up three-pointers. We've seen that with Isaiah Stewart. We've seen it with Marvin Bagley. James Wiseman, took some jumpers last season, and he made some threes in summer league as well. So I think there's a pathway. New coaching staff, obviously, but there's a pathway for Jalen Duren to do that eventually. The ball handling stuff, the dribble pull-ups, I think that's just more so summer league than what we're going to see in Jalen Duren's bag next season. But even if we're not seeing him necessarily do his best Kevin Durant impersonation, I think there is a pathway for him to incorporate that jumper just into his arsenal a little bit more. If it's just like a 17-foot jumper even, I think that really opens things up for him. with the story last season where he's taking cues from Bam Adebayo just as far as his defense and his effort and playmaking, obviously. But he's also a guy that can step out, from mid-range and hit some shots. So there's a lot of precedent for what Duren is doing, and maybe he did a lot more than what he's going to do during the season. But I think these are things he can build on. We see him, practice his jumper with Isaiah Stewart. I mean, even like last week, we saw them taking part in the bigs, taking part in shooting drills and whatnot. So, it's not like he just woke up and not taking any jumpers all season and then decided, I'm gonna just, be Al Horford today. It's just something he's been working on, and I think this could be a launch point for that.
Well, and like we were talking about at lunch today, this may be like a 5, 6, 7 year thing for Jalen Duren, right? I brought up Brook Lopez, not a guy who shot threes a lot early in his career, but now has sustained success and ability to stay in the league because he's expanded the way he can play the game. At some point, even though Jalen Duren is built like a Greek god at 19 years old, he's not going to be built like that and have this just crazy vertical pop that keeps him in the league. So I can understand for him personally, like I don't even mean it selfishly in a negative way, but selfishly saying, I want to have a 15-year NBA career, not a 10-year NBA career. And that 15 years comes from me being able to knock down shots that I've worked on for these 10 years. So we may never see it in actual, maybe even in Detroit. The other thing is the off the bounce stuff. Yeah, like he's not going to go ISO against Joel Embiid when they're playing the Sixers, but that stuff translates into DHOs and things like that where he does need to do that. And so I think that is important just to know. I think my biggest thing with Jalen Duren, I think where I'll really have my eyes on, because I assume we've probably seen the last of him. I don't know. We'll talk a little bit about the rest of this roster at a certain point, because if they shut down Ivey, Duren, and Wiseman, it'll be interesting to see who else plays. But I think it's really on the defensive end, Omari. Yeah. And, today the Pistons give up how many points to the over 100 points to the Rockets. And we will talk about a few of those, 113 to the Rockets. I know they're banging shots, but I think that's where I'd like to see Jalen Duren take the biggest leap as we go into the season is how is he navigating in ball screens? How is he protecting the rim? All of those type of things. Because right now I have questions about all three bigs for Wiseman, Duren, Bagley on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I just think Duren finds himself out of position a lot, and I think he focuses on rebounding more than he does on necessarily being in the right position to contest shots, which is still like a learning curve for him. I mean, he's younger than Ausar Thompson. He's younger than both of Detroit's rookies this season.
That was funny yesterday in the interview. He said he called Ausar a kid, and then he corrected himself. He's like, well, I guess we're the same age. And then somebody was like, no, actually, Jalen, Ausar is older than you.
Yeah. No, Ausar is like, I think almost 2 years, like at least a year and a half older than him. So, like, Jaden's still really young. He's so early in his development. But, I think defensively, maybe you did want to see a leap from him in the summer league, and I don't know if we've seen that. He did have a nice switch on Anthony Black on Saturday where he kind of bothered him and led to a turnover. And you see flashes and glimpses, and obviously he has the tools to be really, really good, defensively. That's part of why they drafted him. But it's not quite there yet, and it just seems like he kind of jumps himself out of position and just isn't quite aware of the rotations he needs to make quite yet. So there's still a lot of advancement he can do in that area, even though I do think that offensively, even just beyond the shooting, like he led a fast break today where he kicked it to Ausar, and then Ausar bounces it back behind him to Wiseman. And
that was nice.
You see some like the ball handling flashes, and there's some stuff I think Duren can do offensively that we're seeing that could pay off for him down the road. Like I did think the ball handling looked a little bit better compared to last season.
Well, like I said, I think that does play into the DHOs and just the flow of this offense. And this is something that's kind of exciting right now for me, Omari, because we know what Cade can do. I think Ivey looks better when he's playing off of Cade. We're going to talk about Ausar. I promise, guys. I know everybody wants to talk about Ausar, and both Omari and I have thought he looked really good. Wes and I have talked about this. Wes hasn't got to watch the game yet either, but Wes texted me after last night's game and was like, man, Ausar looked really good. It was everything he had hoped to see from him. So we'll talk about – but, like, they have a real chance to have these guys that really move the ball, play together. The half – Jared Jack mentioned the half-second offense. You know, I didn't know if this was a real thing or not. We've read articles. People have talked about it. I've talked about it. People have written about it. But hearing it straight out of Jared Jack's mouth kind of gives it some validity that this is truly what they want to do, because we know Jared Jack is, one of Monty's right-hand man. And so half-second offense, and I think that's something Jalen can really do. We talked about Jalen coming out of college. Part of his scout was people really believed in his feel and his passing ability. And like you said, at his age, what he's able to showcase already is really impressive. So I think that just makes for what could be a really fun young core of guys that just really move the ball and can do a variety of things.
Yeah, and Ausar kind of talked about it today with Jalen, where you have a big, obviously, who's very athletic,
Yep.
is a great lob threat, but along with that, can pass as well. And, if you're big, can handle the ball. And, Ivy, Ausar, both could be lob threats as guards, or maybe you want to call it Ausar or both of those guys wings, whatever you call them. They're both lob threats, can both lead to break as well. That gives you just a lot of versatility. And I think we've seen some of that in Summer League with Ausar, with Ivy, with Duren, that the Pistons do have the makings of a pretty good fast break team just with all the, speed, the length, the leaping ability they have. This team is going to just, I think about how athletic this team was 2 years ago and then compared to now, and it's just like, it's night and day. It's night and day. It's a genuine debate. Like, who is the most athletic player on this team? It could be 3 or 4 guys. So, I think that's fun. And you look at just what they want to do offensively, the 0.5 seconds and, just capitalizing on transition opportunity, things like all teams want to do, but they have the personnel, I think, to do that at a greater level than they have in years past.
No, we're going to have to do, Wes. We're going to have to go pull up some old outlines, and we did the best athlete lineups to see what, we got to go pull those up and see who we were scrounging for to get the best athletic lineup, because you're right. I think on those ones a couple of years ago, we were scrounging who to put in the lineup as the 5th player, and now you're going to be leaving off some really athletic dudes when you do the best or most athletic lineup. But Ausar talked about it today, even transition. And again, I think that's where this team can be really fun. And I know people push back on that a little bit, Omari, because in the playoffs, the game slows down, right? Yeah. We know that. This team is going to have to learn to play in the half court and win games in the half court at a certain point. But if they truly want to win as many games as possible this year, I think being one of the faster teams is something that can lead to success. You give Cade the ball and let him – who's really led the break really well is Ausar. I feel like every time Ausar has got a grab and go or gone out in transition with the ball in his hands, he's made a good decision. Obviously he's got to be able to knock down shots. I think he airballed a fadeaway jumper on the baseline today. The shot's going to come around, but let's go ahead and start talking about Ausar. I don't know how you feel. He's been as advertised to me. This is complete compliment, but he's been everything I thought he was going to be so far. And he was even better today on the second of a back-to-back, which I don't think should be undervalued or underappreciated for a rookie coming from the OTE. I think that's big time.
No, absolutely. Everything Ausar did at OTE, where obviously he's a Swiss Army knife. It was like 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, good block and steal numbers. I think like 4 total blocks and steals. He was doing everything. And you have a lot of conversation or debate about the transition from that level of basketball to the NBA, and obviously Summer League is somewhere in the middle of those two. But it's like Troy Weaver said, Holly Berry looks good like in church or at the grocery store or fair or like whatever it was to pay. I'm pretty sure that was it. But quick processing is quick processing, right? And I think we've seen that Ausar has a very, I guess I would say, like a holistic approach to the game, where it's not like he's not focused on any given thing. It's just whatever the right play needs to be. Like, that's what he's going to do. And just makes really quick decisions too. Like, I remember game 1, he gets the ball at half court, just immediately whips it to perfectly placed pass to Wiseman to get him a dunk. And then he had, I think Sasser grabbed the defensive rebound later on in that game, and he gets it to Ausar. Ausar races up the court, finds Roden in the corner and gets him a corner 3. And he's just done a lot of that stuff. He had the bounce pass, after he got it from Duren, he just kind of whips it behind him right to Wiseman and gets him a dunk. And, the blocks and steals, it's like, none of the blocks or steals were even just really thunderous or memorable plays. He just kind of does it. And you just look at the stat line. I didn't realize he had 3 blocks on Saturday until I looked at the stat sheet in the fourth quarter. Wait, he has 3? I remember the couple of them, but I didn't realize he had 3.
I was the same way.
And then today, I think he had 2 blocks. Then he had 3 steals. And it's just he just stacks numbers up. 6 assists. I think he had the highest amount of assists today after Ivy. Just moves the ball really well. I could just talk about his processing endlessly, but he really does process the game quickly, and that's going to really, I think, raise the floor for this team next season. All
right, let's go to a short break here, Omari. When we come back, let's keep talking about Ausar. I want to talk about his interview, some of the rest of his game, what we can expect, how he's going to fit with this roster. So we're going to go to a short break right here. When we come back, we'll keep talking about the number 5 overall pick, Ausar Thompson.
All right, back with segment 2, and we're going to keep talking about Ausar. I will say, and this is not just us or whatever, but again, you get back to the level of competition and how certain things will translate. And it's summer league, so I get to the NBA. But I think just to get a player that is really smart, fills holes just athletically as a playmaker, connector, and then defensively as well, because I think he's been defensively really sound as well. Troy Weaver had the Andre Iguodala comparison. I think that's been pretty apt so far. I think he's really kind of lived up to just what Iggy was, just like as an all-around talent. You talk about the shooting, but we talk about what role will Ausar play and what minutes will be there for him, but if he's doing what he's doing now next season, I just don't see how he's not at least the sixth man.
Well, that's my thing. Like, he's such a connector, and every team needs a connector, and that's what I've talked to different people here this weekend, and, we don't need to get into the whole Andre Iguodala was a really, really good player, guys. So when we compare Ausar to Andre Iguodala, who was a finals MVP on top of all of the other stuff he did, averaged 20 points a game one season with the Sixers, like, this is a huge comp and a really good outcome for a number 5 overall pick. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And if you don't agree that about Andre, then this is what we're saying whenever we say Andre Iguodala. That's the type of player we think the Pistons are getting. To me, if Jaden Ivey are what we think they are, Omari, if Jalen Duren turns into what we think Jalen Duren could be, Ausar is actually a really good fit to that. I've admitted this on the pod. I kind of misevaluated Ausar. I tried to pigeonhole him into this like scoring, bucket getting wing, and that was completely off. And that's why I was a little lower on him overall for the Pistons. But once I saw the vision of who he can be and the type of things he can do, it made a whole lot more sense. And we're seeing it play out. And I realize it's summer league and overreactions. I get it. I get on people about it, and I still do it. But I still think it's impressive that he's doing it. We're not talking about because he went and scored 30 points. We're talking about him doing the little things. And again, I know I continue to reference Jarrett Jack. Jarrett Jack said it about him as well, that like he almost is a garbage man in the sense that he'll just do whatever you need him to do. And I'll tell you what, I didn't interview or I didn't ask any questions because I never do, but just listening to the interview today, very humble kid, kind of shy, kind of quiet, but just had this, very just like great, wholesome kid, ready to learn. I know there's a picture going around today. He was talking to Jerry West, I think, after we had all cleared out. Mm-hmm. He just seems like a great kid. All the intel about him and his brother coming out of OTE seems to be true.
No, he's really personable and was really thoughtful in his answers and how he talks about the game. And I was present even in his first interview, just where he talked about the game. He really seems like a basketball nerd, really understands how the game is meant to be played. I will say, I think part of the misevaluation, I guess I would say, with Overtime Elite is that Ahmed and Ausar had to do everything. They didn't have a choice to not score. So, you compare that to versus maybe if they played for a Duke or a Kansas, where you may not even be like the best player on your team, but you may play more of a secondary or even like, or you're like the third best prospect, right? Like maybe you have guys on that team, like maybe you're playing through your big or you have more of a square force guy. And in that scenario, maybe the unselfishness for Ausar pops a little bit more. And not that they were selfish in Overtime Elite. I mean, they both averaged around 6 assists a game and moved the ball really well. But Ausar had to play more of that scoring role. So I think that maybe his lack of shooting stands out a bit more when teams are playing 3 feet off of him and he has the ball constantly. But in Summer League, we're seeing he is like just folding in to the hierarchy, right? Like He's not trying to be the guy. He's not trying to get his own looks. He's just doing what needs to be done on any given possession. And I think it's just moment-to-moment consistency has also been really, really good. So if there's any, I think it's just tough to evaluate him in Overtime Elite where those two guys are the guys and they basically were the face of the league. If they were in college or even overseas and you have a little bit more around you, maybe we would have seen that a bit more, and then this wouldn't be as much of a surprise as it is.
Well, and I think what's impressive is, we have to give him credit because what did we all talk about during the evaluation was OT is not high-level competition. OT is not high-level competition. Think about the jump he's having to make then, Omari. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to give him some love then because we critiqued him or at least said, hey, this is a hard part of our evaluation is he's playing against 18-year-old kids who are just these high school kids, not even the elite. We're not even talking about Montverde kids and stuff like that. And now he's playing against and it's not just rookies, right? We know these other guys like that have been around the league. James Wiseman, for example, has been around the league for 3 years. I know he hasn't played a lot of games. We'll talk about Wiseman in a second, but just saying this has been a big jump for him. And another thing that makes me feel confident about it, Amin played well in the minutes he got. Now, unfortunately, he rolled his ankle, and it sounds like it was a pretty good roll. He was in a walking boot today. So, shout out Amin, and hopefully he heals up and gets back quickly. I know we probably won't see him anymore in Summer League, but this is a big jump for them. And so kudos to him for being able to handle it so well. And I'll just say again, I just think him playing next to Cade and Ivy is really going to be nice. And I think the big thing for him, I'm going to now watch this year, because I kind of bought into what he's going to be offensively, is how good can he be defensively year one? How good is he going to be? Is he going to be able to take these premier matchups and hold up? Is he going to be good off the ball? Because one of my concerns was they had developed some bad habits with their off the ball defense, but I haven't noticed it a ton. I saw a couple in game one. Again, I didn't super focus on game two. So when I watch it back, I'll watch that. But how good can he be defensively this year as a rookie?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you could throw a rookie into the fire and say, hey, go defend LeBron, or, go defend Tatum or whoever. And, most people are going to struggle with that, let alone a 20-year-old rookie. But that is what they envision him eventually doing and becoming as he gets deeper into his career. And he will get some of those opportunities, I think, because he has the tools. He's 6'6", 7-foot wingspan, which gives you the ability to defend 1 through 4, or if Grant Williams is at center, probably 1 through 5, just depending on the matchup. And he's got the tools. He's got the instincts. You don't just luck into getting he's probably at 11 total blocks and steals through 3 games, which is pretty absurd, especially with 10-minute quarters. And I'm sure he probably didn't play more than 30 minutes in either of those games. So just super hyper productive already. And I think that just speaks to the instincts and, just some understanding what he needs to be done. Even today, I mean, we were talking about his defense, and he's like, I can play with more effort. I can make better rotations, this and that. I was trying to get him to talk himself up a little bit so I could write a story. And he's like, no, actually I suck. No, he didn't seem like he didn't say that, but he's just being humble and, talking about what he can do better. But already, I think the signs of him becoming that type of guy are pretty promising.
Yeah, he has 9 stocks, so 9 steals and blocks, and he hasn't played more than 30 minutes in either of those games, 29 and 27. So it's just, I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm excited about what I've seen. If there was a perfect script for what Ausar Thompson has looked like through 2 games in Summer League, I feel like this is what it would be. I think some people maybe be like, oh, yeah, we'd like to see him knock down threes. So I shouldn't say perfect script. I said, this is really, really good to see for me, because I didn't expect him to come in and bang 4 or 5 threes. I guess that would be the perfect, right? If he was banging threes and the shot just looked crazy good, that's probably the perfect script. But I think it's looked really good. And so I'm really excited. And I think he is a guy we'll see play for the rest of the Summer League. What will be interesting, Omari, is if Jaden doesn't play and maybe Jalen doesn't play, maybe James Wiseman doesn't play. Now you're putting Ausar in a different role. And so one thing I want to point out is, don't overreact if all of a sudden, he has 4 or 5 turnovers or something, because I'm cool with it. Let's put the ball in his hands now. Let's see what happens. I would rather do it in Summer League, because I don't know that he's ready to do it in season. So let's see for a couple of games here in Summer League. He's played really well. He's played the role you want to see during the season. All right, let's see what he can do with the bigger role. And maybe he surprises all of us and really flourishes, but I could see maybe him doing a little bit more of that. We were talking about in the lift on the way over, can he handle the ball well enough that you have your 3 primary ball handlers with Cade, Ivy, and Ausar? And then what does that leave you for a backup point guard? If all 3 of those guys can do it, you can stagger their minutes. So I think his versatility gives you a lot of options.
I'm looking forward, and I'm assuming Ivy's probably done after today. He doesn't really have anything else to prove. I do want to see Ausar get some on-ball reps because, again, he played off of his brother at Overtime Elite, but obviously was still a very productive passer. And I'm just curious to see, once you get outside the confines of that, you just put Ausar on ball, how much can he create for himself, right? Can he get to the rim? Can he finish? And how much of that playmaking when you're in a half-court scenario rather than, just capitalizing in transition, can he do? So I think that could be a really fun storyline, for the last, game or 2 or 3, however many more he played and the Pistons have. Just from a developmental standpoint, because if he could do those on-ball reps, then that probably kind of changes your evaluation of him as a player. In general. It changes your evaluation of, Detroit's roster and, this and that. Obviously, the way it's shaped now, he's probably more of a 3, but I do think there's a chance he could be 1 through 3, whatever lineup you need, he can do that. He processes the game so quick, and I mean, positions are kind of meaningless now anyway, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of on-ball guys who are not like the most amazing passers, right? Like, like Marcus Smart, obviously one of the better players in the NBA. He's not like this amazing, like, floor general type of point guard, but you can still build around that and, use him in a role that really fits the team as a whole. So that's what I want to see. I want to see on-ball Ausar. I want to see if this, pegging of him and Amen, like one being more on-ball, one being off, how much validity there is to that. And especially if they shut Jaden Ivey down, we should be able to see some of that.
Yeah, like I said, and here's the thing, guys. It's 2 summer league games, and we all love the Andre Iguodala comp, but I've talked to a couple of people this weekend as well. It's like, I think there's a lot of guys you could comp to Andre Iguodala, and they don't turn into Andre Iguodala. Yeah. So, I think there's a real fine line with these guys. And of course, if Ausar develops a jumper, things change a little bit, but what keeps him from eventually just being Evan Turner, and Evan Turner had a 10-year NBA career or something like that. But there is that outcome as well where that's not great value at number 5 in the top. Evan Turner was the number 2 pick, and I don't think anybody would think he's returned number 2 pick value. And so I don't even know if I can pinpoint what is the specific thing that keeps somebody in that archetype from being Andre Iguodala compared to Evan Turner. You know what I mean? But that is, something as well. And I'm sure there were times Evan Turner looked really good. He actually had some really good seasons. But so I just want to say, while we continue to use the Andre Iguodala comp, I think that's a hard archetype to hit 100% outcome. And so that's why I love boosting him and I'm excited about it. We got to keep that in mind as well. That's not an easy archetype to hit as opposed to maybe a bucket getter off the bench who all you got to do is go in and bang threes or something like that, if that's what we were looking for. So there's just a lot of nuance to that role within a team. But so far, he looks like he's going to be able to play it well. And I do think they have some of the other pieces that really fit into needing that type of player.
Absolutely. We have about 9-10 minutes left in segment 2. So let's get to some of the every guys. I know James Wiseman has had a lot of eyes on him. Obviously, he's going into year 4, but he's just not played that much basketball. I think he's in his career, he's played 33 more minutes than Jalen Duren has, which is like a really crazy stat. But also, he missed time with an injury. And of course, he's playing for a contending Golden State team before he got here. So it was in a situation where he needed the summer league reps. And I think the best thing you could say about James Wiseman is that he has been in both games one of the best players on the floor. And I think regardless of the minutes played, like you're in year 3 in the NBA, you do want to see him be a step above a lot of guys. And I would say he's done that. He's one of their best players on Saturday. He picked up where he left off today. He had the 17-10 double-double. You see some shot making outside of the paint. I think defensively he's been pretty solid. And I mean, the usual back to the basket, just plays at the rim, dunks, lobs, whatnot. He's been all around pretty good. So I think he's done enough to kind of position himself well going into this 4th season and, of course, restricted free agency of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Wiseman is, 2 double-doubles. So I think he's done what you wanted to see, essentially, right? Like you want him to come in and kind of dominate games. And I realized they didn't dominate the game today. And I do want to talk a little bit about some of the other players we've seen play against Detroit, because I know one of those guys you like to talk about, and you took some heat because we talked about him so much a few weeks ago, and Anthony Black, Cam Whitmore today, Jabari Smith Jr. So I do want to talk about some of those guys. But yeah, Wiseman has just done what you wanted to. And I feel like I'm being unfair, Omari. Like, I truly am. I got to get past this because it's like, yeah, it's his 4th year in the league. He should be dominating summer league, but you gave us some great context with how close the minutes are. And that was something I did when they traded for him. And so I don't think I'm being fair to Wiseman. I'll be honest, Omari. I didn't love his 22 games or whatever it was last year with Detroit. And so I guess right now I'm just like, I just want to see it in the season. I think that's where I'm at. I don't know that seeing anything in summer league was going to sway me strongly one way or the other. I feel like more than some of the other fans, I kind of like Marvin Bagley III, but I like Wiseman too. It'd just be really interesting to see how that big man rotation plays out in general. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to see all of those guys get some minutes, but I also want to see Isaiah Stewart get some minutes at the 5. So it's just going to be tough to see kind of who Monty and Troy and the organization prioritizes. But I will say this, Wiseman has shown out in these 2 games to where you could see where they would want to give those minutes to him. So I just think it'll be really, really interesting to see how those things play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty busy depth chart at the top of that rotation with all the bigs. And Of course, they're going with the two big starting five in summer league, Duren and Wiseman, and both those guys fit some outside shots, which helps. But I don't know if I trust any of them defensively as power forwards yet. And of course, you could say the same thing about Marvin Bagley the third as well. I think Isaiah defensively is probably the best four of that group, but as the roster currently is, it's going to be some tough decisions for that coaching staff to make as far as what they're willing to give up, and if it's really playable to have all four of those guys in their rotation. When I think there's a lot of skill overlap and probably not as good of a fit as you would like. Do you want Duren behind the 3-point arc for like half of his minutes every night, or like even the same for Wiseman? Like I don't know if you do, but I would just say I think Wiseman's just been solid in summer league and hasn't had a truly dominant game. But I think you would probably worry a little bit if you saw him like really struggle or look like the moment was too big for him. He had a really nice pass to Duren today. Like that's the small stuff you want to see.
Yeah.
Where he's like keeping his head up. He's like aware, like making those types of plays and trying to fit into the overall flow of the offense. Because I also thought that the team didn't necessarily do him any favors last year with just shutting a lot of the key guys on the roster down. And he's trying to, and it just put him in a position where he had to do probably a lot more than he needed to as well, which just out of fairness to him. So this has been a good environment for him, and I think he's fared pretty well.
And I just want to mention real quick, Isaiah Livers hasn't been playing here in summer league. I think it's been reported just personal issues with Isaiah, and so he hasn't played any game. I was hoping we would see him play. Obviously, I don't know if he'll eventually come out or not. I don't think we haven't seen him around while we've been out here and around the team before after games. So we'll have to see. What will be interesting to me, Omari, is if Wiseman's done and Duren's done. Well, we're going to see some young bigs on this Pistons roster the rest of the summer league. Jack Nunn, Tosan, who was the Exhibit 10 undrafted free agent. So we'll get to see some of those guys. Obviously, Tosan's not a 5, but just at the 4. So we'll see some of those guys play. Let's talk about Marcus Sasser before we get into anybody else, and then we can talk about Roden and some of those guys. Sasser, I thought, had a really good game yesterday. Today, I feel like he didn't pop quite as much. Had 3 points. But I liked what I saw yesterday with him, and I just think he's one of those guys that's going to get after it defensively. I think the shot making is going to be real. Essentially, kind of like what we've said with Ausar, but with Sasser, I think he's going to be what we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I think some of the 3-point shot making we've seen from him has been good. He had a couple movement threes on Saturday. I don't know. I think the one today might have been a movement 3 too, actually. Okay. Like defensively, I think he's been pretty active. I read a story ran today, actually, where I talked to his former coaches and teammates at Houston just about what kind of stood out about him. And Jamal Shed actually just talked about just how big his hands are and obviously the wingspan, and he can really get at it defensively. So, along with Ausar, like if Ivey doesn't play anymore, like I think Sasser having more on-ball reps, maybe being more aggressive. I'll be curious to see what that looks like because, he was just an absolute dog, like especially his last 2 years at college, like one of the best shooters in college, defensively just really gets into guys, like just has really great instincts. And despite being 6'1", like 6'7" wingspan, like the big hands, like I said, he's just got a lot going for him on that end of the floor. So would be very curious to see just how he fares, just with more responsibility.
Yeah, and so I think we'll see more of Jared Roden. We're going to see more Amude.
Buddy Boeheim has shot the ball pretty well.
Buddy Boeheim has shot the ball well. That's what Buddy's supposed to do, right? At the end of the day, if you're a shooter like Buddy, that you got to come in, you got to knock down shots. And that was one of my frustrations last year, him being on a 2-way. He'd get a chance to come in the game, and he didn't make shots. And it seems cruel, but if you're going to be a 3-point shooter, because we know Buddy's not going to come in and just be this plus defensively, right? At the end of the day, that's not going to be the case. And so if you're going to do that, then you got to come bang shots, right? Joe Harris, if he's shooting 33% from 3 this year for the Pistons, then that's not going to be very productive for them because we know Joe Harris isn't this lockdown defender. If Joe Harris is shooting 43% from 3 this season and 50% on open catch and shoot, that's a productive player that helps out the offense and helps guys develop and grow. And so that's obviously Buddy's path to any legitimate NBA career. And props to him. He's got his chance. It's not easy to sit on the bench all game, Omari, and then come in cold. And I'll tell you this, guy, these gyms have been packed for these summer league games. There's real crowds. And I think that adds an element to what these guys are playing against. I mean, these Wemby games are insane. We can talk more about this after the break, but he's not just knocking down shots in an empty gym is what I'm saying. Both of these games have been in Thomas and Mack in the big gym out here in Vegas. And so props to him. Again, I think Rodin has been okay. And Moutier Cazalan has got some major minutes and played some stretches. I think Kiefer Sykes had a little bit of time. And like I said, we're going to get to see some of these other guys. I think Simpson played a little bit today, if I remember right. So these guys are going to get some more time as we go throughout this, and we'll get a chance to really evaluate them and see, can they make a two-way the G League roster play for the Motor City Cruise this season.
Yeah, there's some intriguing guys on this roster. I'm looking forward to watching Tucson, just being a big 6'8" playmaking wing who was really good for the Pistons team last season that made the Sweet 16. So they've got some intriguing guys, and we'll definitely be watching these next two games closely. They have a couple of days off, but they'll be back Wednesday. So next week we'll get to the rest of the roster and kind of what we saw from those games. So we're going to go ahead and go to our final break. And in segment 3, we will just talk the weekend, Summer League, been kicking it all week. So it's been fun. So we'll just get into the fun part of it.
Yep. Well, right after this short break, we'll get into just Vegas and what we've experienced, some of the spots we've eaten at, how Summer League's been. Everybody listening right now, watching right now, we appreciate you. We know it's like almost 11 o'clock back east, so we appreciate you guys tuning in. And we got some ratings, some reviews to talk about Omari. We got some fun stories. We'll do all that right here.
All right, we're back with segment 3. Let's go ahead and start off with some of the reviews we've got. I think we got like 2 or 3 over the last week, which is a really busy week review-wise. Michael Dampier just mentioned the Korean barbecue. We'll get to that.
We'll get to it, Michael. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we hit up Asian barbecue, it was Asian, right?
Yeah, Korean barbecue.
Oh, Korean?
Yeah.
Same. No. While sports talk has evolved into fanboys with microphones, these guys offer grounded, common sense sports talk. Love it. This was from D Smith 3613. Awesome podcast. Then we got one a little more neutral. This was from Ronald Dupree. He said, solid, gave us a 3-star, solid podcast. Would be nice to hear some form of criticism towards an organization that's been poorly run since 2008. Some balance would make this a better podcast. I do enjoy the guests who've been on the show. I will say this. We get some really, really good guests, Omari. I got to give us some props for that. Listen, I understand that, especially me, we've talked about this. I'm the eternal optimist in the Pistons fan base. People think you work for the organization and can't say anything negative.
Which is false. I work for the Free Press. I don't get a check from the Pistons.
I get it. I guess I do get it. But, yeah, I think we're just going to try to see positive sides of things. I feel like we critique people. However long, 9 months ago, we were getting crushed because we didn't have Jaden Ivey's points per game at 20 per game in the preseason, Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like we give our honest opinions on it. I don't feel like I'm ever trying to sugarcoat things or keep it positive. And I'll tell you this, we know who listens to the podcast, and we know, and it's we could play it that way, but we don't. I feel very confident saying that the takes I give, the opinions, the analysis I get is how I truly feel about things.
Yeah, same. I know, folks are frustrated because they had cap space, and I think you go through a cycle where you talk about cap space, and people are like, "Why are we going to spend it? We're going to do all this stuff," and and then they just make a couple trades, and it's kind of like, your parents are loaded and they just bought you socks and underwear for Christmas, and you're like, I guess you don't really love me, huh?
Does that really happen? Do people really get socks and underwear for Christmas and that's it?
That hasn't happened.
Maybe. Wes says yes. Wes, you've had this experience.
Wes is shaking his head. Yes, Wes probably was being a bad kid, and they just. No, that's actually a good gift. I actually like getting socks now. I always need socks. I lose socks a lot, so
that's how it changes, right? Yeah. You get to art. Well, I'm way older than you, but you get to. By the we'll get to the Rockets head coach stuff here in just a little bit. So this is from Johnny 2054. Excellent podcast. So we're at 181 ratings on Apple, guys. Thank you. So let's get to 200 here as soon as we can. Almost 250 on Spotify. Again, YouTube, give it a like, follow, subscribe, however YouTube works. We appreciate all that. He says, 20-year-old Pistons fan from Oklahoma here. So 20. I love that people are letting us know how old they are now because we talked about the age. Said, love the front office insight from Omari as well as the fan perspective from Bryce. 2 high-level ball knowers that are a joy to listen to. Keep up the good work. I appreciate a listener from Oklahoma. Obviously, I live in Kansas, as most of you guys know. Sometimes that's a shock to people. But, again, guys, we always appreciate these. And then one last one. This was actually from Threads, which Omari is not on. Just want everybody to know that. But Motor City Hoops is. And he just said he's going to watch from Malaysia. Now, this was when we were going to do it in the morning, so I have no idea what time it is in Malaysia right now.
Yeah.
So if you're not being able to watch live, I'm sorry. Hopefully you're going to catch this whenever you wake up or get off work or however it is in Malaysia right now. But again, it's just so cool to hear all these people listening all over the world.
No, I mean, there are Pistons fans everywhere. Like, they're truly a global team. Of course, the NBA is a global game. Shout out to Jack Kelly, who's here in Summer League, all the way from Australia. And he said it took him 24 hours to get here, but that's just the dedication for fans all over the world, right? You know, to come in and celebrate this great sport. So thank you for watching for Malaysia. Sorry you couldn't watch this episode, but of course we'll record every week, so there will be plenty of opportunities, and we record all different times of day, so hopefully we'll get one just like the perfect time for our Malaysian fans to sit down and watch.
That's one of the coolest things about these lives, Omari, is, you know, we're not saying, hey, every Sunday at this time. We're just like today we changed it from the first thing this morning or yesterday or whatever. We changed it from 10 a.m. this morning to whatever time it is right now. And so people still tune in. We appreciate it. And I'll say one of the coolest experiences, and I know this is a little different than what we usually do, guys, but, you know, we're out in Vegas at Summer League, so we're going to talk about this stuff a little bit. So if you're not into it, we get it. You know, tune back in next week. We'll be talking ball like always, but we're going to take a chance here for 10 minutes to talk about this stuff.
And there are people who are here specifically for the food takes, too. So this is like the highlight of the episode for them. Like, they've been waiting 45 minutes through all the ball talk to get through like the food takes. So,
I said we talked to somebody today that was like, "Oh, I'm interested in this stuff. I'm gonna have to go listen to the food takes." But one of the coolest things, Omari, 2 or 3 times in the last 2 days, I've been walking in the stands and people have yelled out my name to tell me that they listen to the pod. I mean, like, just I'm a nobody around, you know, and like people recognize the pod, they recognize us, they listen, they appreciate it. It's legit one of the coolest things. Last night I was walking out to go home and somebody's like, Bryce, what's up? And so I went around, said what's up, you know, introduced myself, talked to him. His buddy was there for the bachelor party, all of that stuff. We took a picture. Like, it was so cool. Today I was standing up on just in the mezzanine or whatever. Somebody walks up and just says, "Hey, Bryce Simon?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Big fan of the Pistons Pulse." You know, people reached out. I got to connect with so many people. Met Jack in person. You had already met Jack. I hadn't met Jack. It's just really, really cool, Omari. I couldn't ever imagine we'd get to this. Me and Wes grinded through a lot of episodes where nobody was listening and nobody cared. And now we have more listeners right now than some of our episodes used to get total. That's what I'll say. And so it's just really cool to now people recognize us walking around the gym.
Yeah, it's like being a writer and reporter. A lot of times you just do the job, you forget that people like read your stuff. And now I'm doing the same thing with the pod, where it's like I just sit down and talk, you know, hoops for an hour with Bryce and Wes every week, and you find out people listen to it. They're like, "Hey, I listen to the pod." I get recognized from the pod more than like from my writing, which is crazy. But you know, Bryce, you have a pretty distinctive voice, so you probably just like talking. People are like, "Oh, like that's Bryce." You know, because you look just like the Houston Rockets head coach, and then there's also a guy.
The Pistons assistants too.
Yeah, like all 3 of y'all could be triplets. So you know, maybe there was a few other ones where they mistake them for you. So you know, it was like 3 people. It could have been like 8 or 9.
How funny would it be if the Pistons assistant coach, somebody came up like, "Oh, you're Bryce Simon from the Pistons Pulse." Like, "No, I'm the assistant coach of the Detroit Pistons." What are you talking?
Like, who's Bryce? He's actually like, "Oh, thank you for mistaking me for Bryce. He's a great guy."
No, it's been really cool. It's been an awesome experience. And yeah, so Friday night, I don't know what day it is. You really do lose track of it. Friday night? Was that our first night?
Yeah, I got in Friday. We both got in Friday.
Yeah, so Friday after the games, we try to get an Uber. We can't get one, guys. Legit, we can't. We watched Wemby.
The app was lying. So the app was like, Uber will be here in 7 minutes. And then it was 10 minutes later, it said like 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes after that, it went back up to 7. Then it said 2 for a little bit. Then it went up to 10. And we're just standing there in the heat for like a half hour. And it's like, we are starving. Like, okay, so I got in. I had like an 8 a.m. Eastern flight, right? You know, which is like 5 a.m. Pacific. And I don't think we ate until like 10 p.m. Yeah, so it was like pretty much a full day where neither of us had really had anything to eat, you know, because Bryce got in a couple hours after me. So we just walked to this. I was just like, we're just going to walk somewhere. We were going to take
We were not going to get an Uber anyway.
Yeah. I don't even remember where we were going to Uber to. But it was just like, we just couldn't find an Uber, so we were just like, well, we just walked somewhere from the arena. So like 12 minutes away, there is a Korean barbecue spot, like the strip mall that has like 4.5 stars, and I haven't been there, so I was just like, okay, like Korean barbecue is good, so we'll just do that. Went up with like a group of people, like the other Pistons people, like my guy Evan Barnes, who covers the Brooklyn Nets now for Newsday, and DeMichael Cole, the Grizzlies writer for the Commercial Appeal, Lauren Williams, really used to cover the. Lauren joined us at Lotus Asylum actually the next day. She had a Hawks game that night, and we'll talk about Lotus Asylum in a little bit. But we had like 7 people, like Rod Beard, like Mike, like just a really good group of people, and the barbecue was fantastic.
Omari burnt some of it though. Like I didn't.
Some of it needed to be burnt. Like that's that's how you get the flavor. It wasn't burnt. It's just. Is
that fact? Can somebody confirm that you're supposed to burn it?
Well, it's not burnt. It has some char on it. It wasn't burnt. It wasn't like charcoal.
The guy was getting mad because he had to replace our little grill thing way more often than every other table.
Well, that's just we were like, well, we don't know that. We weren't looking at the other tables.
I was. That's what I do because you guys were talking about music. I didn't know what the hell you guys were talking about. Because you're talking about all this music and I don't know what you're saying.
So it was like.
What were you talking about? What were you talking about?
We're talking about Kendrick Lamar.
Because you had some really bad music takes. Rod Beard was not impressed with your music takes.
Well, I disagree with Rod. I think my music take was correct. So they think that The Pimple Butterfly is like his best album. And I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. But
what was the other one? Something about a pimple?
To pimp a butterfly.
Oh, to pimp
a butterfly. See, this is like I can't take this man out because he doesn't even know what we're talking about.
I swear I thought you were saying pimple.
Yeah, the pimple butterfly. So anyway, they had to keep changing the grill out because we had 2 different types of chicken and 2 different types of marinade. And like obviously, if you're if you're cooking marinated chicken, like the sugars in the marinade are going to burn. Every 20 minutes, it was just the grill was just getting
supposed to be every 20. You had to do it every 5.
But that's what's supposed to happen. Like it's like when you're cooking the food, the meat itself wasn't burnt. It was just the grill was burning. But that's what happens when you cook the meat. It's just that the marinade is going to burn on the grill, but the meat was perfectly cooked. Like it was delicious. Nobody got sick. Yeah, it's perfectly cooked.
Easy.
It's perfectly cooked, and you had an amazing meal. You enjoyed it.
It was good.
It was really good.
It was good. I will tell you this, Omari. Our friendship has made me expand my horizons in terms of eating. Because then last night we go to, I don't know what's a place. Somebody put it in the chat. I don't know how they knew where we went, but somebody put it. I'm sure we tweeted it out. Yeah. But somebody put it in the chat. Where did we go? Lotus something?
Lotus Asylum.
That's good. I like that food.
Yeah. So the Saturday, Vince Ellis, this is like the 3rd year in a row we went. 2nd year Bryce came. It's a Thai spot called Lotus Asylum. So we got Korean the first night, Thai the second night. So we're just really, we're just trekking all of Asia.
Right after the pod,
we're going to go get some seafood.
Yeah, tonight.
And get some seafood after we wrap this up in a few minutes. But Lotus Asylum is like one of my favorite restaurants ever. We go with Vince and we just ordered a lot of different stuff like fried prawns, like a couple noodle dishes, egg rolls, soup. Like we had salmon, we had sea bass. Like we just had like a lot of stuff, like just duck, just amazing. Like all these different curry, like just all this stuff. And we had like 7 people and just like amazing food. Like it's so good. Like I love Thai food and this is just like as good as it gets. And and then we do it like kind of like tapas style, right? So we just all have plates. You just kind of pick and choose what you want. So good. Like Lotus Asylum is so good.
Here's the truth, though. Last year I get invited, and you tell me leading up, Vince will order for the table. You don't got to worry about it. Like we'll just eat like family style. Well, we get there, and some of the other people were like, "No, like we just want to order our own thing." So now I'm lost in the shuffle. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to order here. All of that. So I went to Vince because I knew Vince a little better this year. Obviously, I went to Vince before we went. I said, Vince, we're ordering family style. Like, I'm not very assertive about this stuff. I'm like, we are ordering family style tonight because I don't want to have to figure out what to order. Now, I will say, Lauren's the best. Lauren was working the beat with the Pistons. Now she's with the Hawks.
For the AJC.
So she's awesome. But she was sitting there like in my ear, like, no, this is really good. This is what this means. This is what that means. And so Lauren's the go for that. It also took us forever to get our Uber last night too. Like we were trying to go get another spot and just hang out after we ate, and we waited in the parking lot. Me, you, and James were there for like 15 minutes just waiting.
Yeah. It was like the same deal as the night before where the app lied and said 5 minutes, and then 20 minutes later, you're like, oh, I'm just canceling this.
Maybe you have like low stars as a customer on.
I have amazing. I have like one
Are you a bad tipper, Omar? I feel like you're a bad tipper.
I do everything. I'm about to show the people.
You can't show the people.
We're not going to ruin my Lyft reputation.
This is going on YouTube. You can't show them your Uber and Lyft account.
I'm about to show. I'm just going to show the stars. I'm just going to show my rating. I'm showing my rating.
This is a really bad idea.
I'm just going to show my rating.
This is on YouTube. I just want you to know that.
That's cool. Like I want everybody to know.
So Wes brought up a really good point. Lauren was the final Motor City Hoops podcast guest that we had before we went from Motor City Hoops to the Pistons Pulse. Lauren was our final guest. That is true, man. This is why we keep. Wes is the man, man. I love you, man.
Here it is. So this is just. I just want
to say this is a bad idea.
I'm just gonna show my badges. Like it's just.
What is a badge?
Name. So like I lift everywhere. Like I do lift because I think you get.
Now whenever the guy doesn't show up, like the last 2 nights, you had to go Uber because Lyft was whack.
Yeah, well Uber's like my second.
But what are we taking to supper tonight? Because we're gonna be late. This is why we walk everywhere. We're walking in 100-degree heat everywhere.
Yeah, even by Vegas standards, the traffic has been
real
awful.
Quick. The reason it's so bad though is they're having F1 out here, and so they're redoing they're like doing construction on the streets. Because I don't watch F1, but apparently they legit race through the streets. Yeah. And so Vegas roads are under construction, and ones that should be 3 lanes are 1 lane. Yeah. So
well, here we go. So 5-star rider. I've taken almost 600 lifts like since I've been covering the league. So it's been a while. I have 150 plus 5-star ratings. I'm a 5-star rider.
What is your overall? Because we're 4.9 on Apple and Spotify. Is your Lyft rating better than
586 rides, 5-star rating? And you know why I have 5 stars? Because I don't talk. I sit in the back. I mind my business. I don't get the car dirty. I sit back there. I chill. Sometimes they talk to me, which is cool. I'm a good conversationalist.
I don't like when they talk to me.
I don't like when they talk to me either.
Please stop talking to me.
Sometimes I'll take a lift to the airport at like 4 a.m. and I'll just get somebody that just drank up and had like a shot of coffee, apparently. I had a dude in LA who was like hilarious. He's talking about like his relationship and all this stuff. Like it was like 4 a.m. Like I had no energy at all, but I was just being entertained the whole way. And I'm sure he can be 5 stars because I'm a great listener.
I don't bring my personality. I have 5 stars on Uber because I tip really well. I give like 15, 20, 25. I just always give 25%. I always give them a 5-star rating and I go on with my day.
That's the other one.
Oh, here we go.
Top tipper.
What are those real badges?
These are real badges.
What app is that?
Lyft.
Okay, well, if you're 5-star tipper and rider or whatever it is, why don't our Lyft show up on time?
Because of the traffic.
Late to supper. I guarantee we're late to supper.
Because of the drivers. Because of the drivers. Like I clearly deserve 5-star treatment, and the drivers are just lollygagging. Like you got to cut through traffic. You got to go over the barriers in the middle of the road. Like you better come pick us up.
This is not true.
Like come on. I deserve. Like we deserve great service, and it's just the traffic in LA. It's just really bad.
We're in Vegas. I've never been to LA.
We're in Vegas. We are in Vegas. I just see hot in this palm tree. So
I will say this, guys. I'm going to switch you. Summer League is crazy this year.
Yeah.
Like the last 2 years, I feel like the crowds weren't that insane. It wasn't that bad. This year, it's insane. Like the crowds, the media. I mean, usually it dies. Even like after the first game today was crazy. Yeah. You can't even, if you guys have been out here. So there's Thomas and Mack, and then there's the Cox Pavilion is connected right there. You used to be able to just walk into Cox Pavilion and almost sit anywhere you want. Now there's lines because they'll stop you. They like actually won't let you in until other people leave. And it's like, obviously you have media. I get media credentials as well. It'll be packed. It's turned into a spectacle. And I didn't go to NBA Con. I don't think you did either. So I don't know if that was why or whatever, but this thing is blowing up. Also, the little sphere thing. Yeah. That thing is crazy.
I think it's stupid.
What?
Personally.
Oh my God.
It's a waste of electricity. It's like this giant spear. I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter because everybody tweeted it. I'm not tweeting it. I'm not going to give it to free advertising.
I tried to tweet it. It is cool. But I couldn't get. They had a glare on it, and I couldn't get it.
No, it's cool. Like it can become like all these different things. Like I think like they've been advertising Summer League on it, and I think at one point it looked like an actual basketball. Like it's really cool. Like technology wise, it's really cool. But somebody said they spent $2 billion on it. And that's stupid. Like nobody needed that. Vegas has enough lights. You didn't need this giant globe. It's just, and everybody tweets it and gives you free advertising. It's this great thing. It's dumb. It's
smart.
Like it's smart, but it's dumb.
All right. Anything else about Vegas? What else have we done? Oh, we ate at Shaq's spot today.
Yeah, mediocre. Mediocre.
We actually had somebody walk up to our table. I don't know why he picked us and said, let Shaq know that this wasn't very good.
Yeah, I was like, if I see Shaq, I'll just tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, your chicken sandwich spot it was fine. It was fine. I got like the basic sandwich because I've been like trying to eat like somewhat healthier. And he has like a lot of toppings on it. So you get like a mac and cheese chicken sandwich or like buffalo, this and that. I just got the basic chicken sandwich because to me, if the chicken is good, you can just get a couple pickles in there, some sauce and be fine. And it was all right. It was all right.
Knockoff Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, like it was fine. It was fine.
Double the price.
But double the price. But it's still like $8 for a chicken sandwich in Vegas. It's still like pretty good.
That's true. That's facts because some of the other stuff we've had to spend money on is ridiculous. So
yeah, the only thing I would say it's called Big Chicken Sandwich, but it was barely bigger than a Chick-fil-A sandwich. Like Shaq's chicken chain called Big Chicken Sandwich. It should be like this massive chicken sandwich. It was not a massive sandwich. Like I'm pretty hungry, and we're gonna go eat in a little bit because that's all I had to eat today.
I'm starving, bro. That's the last time I ate too.
Yeah, I'm starving too. But good food adventures. Bryce can say it. Like all the spots I recommended were fantastic. So I'll put that in my back pocket.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's been good. My wife has been doing Vegas stuff.
She went to Kevin Hart last night. She's at some show today. I haven't seen her.
Nobody has. I hope she's alive. Like, I hope nobody had, like, somebody don't have her phone and just text me to, like, make me feel comfortable because I haven't seen her since we got here. So hopefully she shows up to the airport tomorrow whenever we're supposed to hop on the plane and go back and see our kids. So, now it's been awesome. Got to meet a lot of really cool people. We can't always shout it out on the pod, but I got to meet somebody today. Omari introduced me to someone that was really cool to meet. I got to, that's the cool thing about media here is you're literally just walking around and there's Shams and there's, Troy Weaver walks right by you and all that stuff. I mean, it's just, I know you're used to that, but for me, even when I go to Pistons games, it's not quite like that. Yeah. So it's been a cool experience. As always, I'm headed back tomorrow morning. You're headed back on Wednesday.
So I still got a couple of days, unfortunately.
I was going to say, you're about to be burnt out, man. It's got to be about over for you.
It's just, you talk to everybody. By the time you get to Monday, everybody's collectively like, it's time to go home. And I'll say the vast majority of media here are leaving on Monday.
All right. Din Tai Fung is good shine. Yes. So, Mel,
we'll do that next year.
We were going to go to this. It's my fault we didn't eat there. So
we were going to go for lunch today.
Yeah. My wife, she scheduled it like 2 weeks ago because of TikTok or whatever. She went again tonight with her friend, but we were going to go today, but our earliest reservation I think we get was 11:30, and then we wanted to get to the gym on time. So that was my fault. But yeah, that food looks good. We do got to get to supper tonight though, guys. Thank you for everybody that tuned in, watched live. It was a crazy turnout for 10 o'clock at night or whatever it is. Everybody that, if you're listening to the pod, if we got to meet you here at Vegas, again, shout you guys out. It was so cool to see all the fans, the ratings, the reviews, all of this stuff, man. Like this is one of those times where it's like you get a chance to reflect on the pod and how far we've come, Omari, which is really, really cool. It's been a lot of fun. We love it and had a good time. So
no, absolutely. Yeah, it was fun. Another summer league in the books. Like I got to remind you all that me and Bryce met for the first time 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yep.
Because he brought me on the Motor City Hoops podcast.
Yep.
And then that kind of led to what we're doing now. So full circle. Thanks everybody for staying up late, tuning in. I know tomorrow's a work day for you all. So I will go ahead and close this out. And again, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chen, our executive producer, Anjanette Delgado, and our sports editor, Kirkland Crawford. Big shout out to Wes, as always, and looking forward to closing out Summer League when we record again next week.